Hey guys, it's Alexandra here. It is about 3:40 in the afternoon on Wednesday, May 20th. I wanted to sit down as I have a break after the end of my work day, which just finished up at 2:40, and my office hours at 6 o'clock tonight, and just film a couple videos. And I figured since I need to get ready and put some makeup on, I would sit down and just chit chat with you guys while I did that. Talk to you about what I've been watching and reading and just, I don't know, have a good time putting some makeup on. I do have my Diet Dr. Pepper, so let's go ahead and get ready. I will leave all of the products that I am using on the screen if I can, and if not, at least in the description box. But let's start off with what am I currently watching. So I just a couple nights ago started to try and watch The Great on Hulu, which is a new like mini series TV show about the rise of Catherine the Great. Now, it is very much only partially true, and they're very upfront with that. It's the sort of true, sometimes true story. I've watched about half an episode, to be quite honest, of it, and I'm not sure how I feel. It is really absurd, and the characters are super over the top and ridiculous, and I get that it's a comedy, and I get that it's just like, oh, this is supposed to be funny and ridiculous, but it might be a little too ridiculous for me. I don't know. I'm gonna try and finish the first episode and maybe watch the second episode and just see how I feel, but right now I'm not loving it. The other thing, though, that I have been watching is I actually just finished rewatching all of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which was really fun. I love Pirates of the Caribbean. I've loved it since I was in middle school. I've been absolutely just obsessed with it. To the point where in middle school, anytime that I could work the Pirates of the Caribbean series into a class project, I would. Like, we in science in 8th grade had to make our own constellation, and so I made the Flying Dutchman as my constellation and named all of the stars after characters in the Pirates of the Caribbean series, and then had to write a short story about the constellation, and of course it was obviously Pirates of the Caribbean themed. And in art class we made pillows, and we had to create like a stamp to stamp on a design on our pillows, and I made a Pirates of the Caribbean stamp to put on there. I was obsessed, and I just loved like the adventure of being a pirate, and I love the characters. In particular, I loved Orlando Bloom as Will Turner. He's forever and always my biggest celebrity crush, to the point where for Valentine's Day, my aunt and uncle, when I was in middle school, not now, but when I was in middle school, they got me a life-size cardboard cutout of Orlando Bloom as Legolas. So your girl loved Pirates of the Caribbean, in particular, loved Orlando Bloom. I still do. And so I watched all of those. I love all of them for different reasons. I certainly feel like some are better than others. The first one will always be my favorite just because it was the original. I think I really like the second one a lot as well. The third one's really weird. Like, let's be honest. If you've watched the third Pirates of the Caribbean, which is At World's End, the first half to 3/4 of that movie is just absolutely out there with like the little Captain Jack Sparrows on the shoulder and stuff. It's really weird. It's good. The ending is really good, but it's super strange. I liked number 4 on Stranger Tides, which was a huge deviation from the originals, but it was still good. I could get on board with what was going on, and I actually really liked the newest one, Dead Men Tell No Tales. I love the fact that some of the originals were back. I love that we were kind of tying in like loose ends with the different characters. I don't know. It was just really enjoyable. I would be very much good with them making another one, but really only if we can have some of the originals back again. Like, I feel like you have to have Captain Jack Sparrow and that it needs to be Johnny Depp. But yeah, I watched all of those and it was a really good time. Super nostalgic, made me feel very happy. I absolutely love the score to that as well. Hans Zimmer is amazing, and I couldn't tell you the number of times I've listened to He's a Pirate, which is the theme song to the movie. It's just awesome. I have also been watching a lot of Disney Channel original movies on Disney Plus. I love Disney Channel original movies with all of my heart and soul. They are some of my favorite things to go back and rewatch. And for years before they made Disney Plus, I wish that they would put a lot of those original movies back on TV or put them on DVDs so that we could watch them. But some that I've watched pretty recently, I just watched Quince the other day, which was super sweet. I watched Luck of the Irish, which is one of my favorites. I also watched The 13th Year, Halloween Town, love Halloween Town, probably one of my all-time favorites. I also watched one that I had never seen, like I don't know, I think it was a little before my time, and then also they never really showed it again, and that was Going to the Mat, and I loved that. Like, that was really amazing. The one thing I'll say about Disney Channel original movies is they're quite cheesy. I wouldn't say they're usually the highest quality films ever, but they're sure fun. And again, they have a high level of nostalgia for me. There are a couple, though, if you're interested in maybe ones that aren't so cheesy, that I think are actually really good stories. And one of those is True Confessions, which has Shia LaBeouf in it, and he plays a young man with mental disabilities, and it's the story of his sister basically creating this documentary of their life, and she's dealing with how do you be the big sister to somebody who has special needs, and I just is very emotional and I think very well done and not cheesy at all, and is a good story to prompt conversation about being inclusive and just being kind and understanding to those that are different. I really love that one. I don't know, I think you can't go wrong with some Disney Channel original movies. All right, moving on to the face and also on to what am I currently reading. So I am currently reading 2 books, which I haven't been reading multiple books at one time for a while, but I couldn't decide, so I figured I would just read them both. And they're actually both really long, which is breaking from my habit of reading pretty much just short books over the last several weeks. But I am reading Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks, which is the first book in her Dark Shores series. She is a booktuber here, and I absolutely adore her. She makes just really wonderful and creative content about books, and I love watching her videos. And so far, I don't have a whole lot to say about the plot of the book yet because I'm only about 100 pages into it, and you can tell that we're definitely setting up for a pretty large world and fairly decent sized cast of characters. I think my favorite character so far is Dietrich, and Dietrich seems to have a very interesting and kind of possibly sad or full of turmoil kind of backstory, and we haven't gotten all of it yet, but he has an interesting relationship with some of the other characters so far, and I can see it building. So I'm very much enjoying the story so far. The other book that I'm reading right now is Keeper of the Lost Cities, Nightfall, which is book number 6 in Shannon Messenger's Keeper of the Lost Cities series. It picks up almost exactly where the last book left off, which is great because the last book left off on a huge cliffhanger, and I definitely am excited to see it pick back up where that one stopped. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one either because I'm only about 50 pages into this one, and it's almost 800 pages long, so I really haven't even begun to tap the story yet. But we've got some interesting dynamics going on between Sophie and the other characters that are around her, and we've introduced some characters that I'm excited to see how they all come together. Yeah, I'm loving both of them so far. I think that Nightfall will be a bit of a quicker read just because it's middle grade, and even though it's a bit longer than Peace and Turmoil, I think that I will fly through it fairly quickly once I actually get a chance to read. I haven't had a ton of time to read because I am finishing up the last week of, actually I'm finishing up the last week of e-learning with my students and then going into the last week of days for me as a teacher that are on my contract. So definitely a lot of work going on for me personally, but I am enjoying the books that I am reading. Kind of piggybacking off of that, there are a couple books that are on my radar that I'm super excited about. The first is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the prequel to the Hunger Games. Okay, so I know that a lot of people aren't super excited because it is, or let me rephrase that. I know that there are a lot of people that are uncertain of the story because it is going to be following the person that becomes President Snow, essentially President Snow when he's a young person. And President Snow isn't the most lovely person, and it is kind of interesting to think about reading a book from his perspective. But, sorry, I was out of focus there. But I am excited to get to know his backstory because he is such a flawed character and seems fairly deeply flawed from the original trilogy. I'm interested to know how those deep-seated beliefs came to be a part of who he is, because most of the time when you get characters like that, there's a pretty interesting backstory that goes with it. They just didn't pop into this world with so much hatred towards other people. So that I think will be very interesting. If I'm being honest, I still hope that she will someday write a book about when Haymitch was in the Hunger Games, because Haymitch is one of my favorite characters from the whole original trilogy. So I want that. I know a lot of people want the story for Mags, which I agree would be wonderful as well. But there's a lot of world for her to explore, and I don't think it's a bad thing that she started with President Snow as a young person. I just don't. Another book that was recently released that I'm pretty excited about is Midnight Sun. So if you're a Twilight fan, we all know that Midnight Sun is the story of Twilight, but from Edward's perspective. And I know there was a whole debacle several years ago about it being partially leaked on the internet and then Stephenie Meyer not wanting to release it. And people have just essentially been waiting for a really long time for this book, and that rubs people the wrong way. And I know Twilight is not perfect and is kind of problematic in a lot of ways, and certainly not high class literature. With that being said, I love Twilight. It was one of the biggest reading experiences that I had in high school. I definitely was a part of the fandom both for the books and the movies, to the point where my family was going on vacation to Washington State, and they took me to Forks and Port Angeles and La Push, and we got to see all of the real life places essentially that were in the books, and it was just absolutely wonderful. Great family memories were made. I absolutely love Twilight. I actually finished rereading the series not that long ago, and I'm excited to read Midnight Sun. I understand if you're not, and that's totally okay, but I will certainly be one of those people who reads it fairly quickly after it is released. I am ready for it. Though I will say, if Stephenie Meyer could write one book in the Twilight realm that doesn't have to do with particularly Bella and Edward, but somebody from the original cast, I would want her to write Carlisle's backstory. I would want to see him before he was a vampire and like experience his transition to being a vampire in the book, and then his time with the Volturi, or Volturi, however you're supposed to say that. I've never said it right. And I would love that. Carlisle is absolutely my favorite character from the Twilight series, which is funny, but I always wanted more of him in those books, so I would give anything for Stephenie Meyer to write more from his particular perspective. All right, so I sort of briefly mentioned that I was finishing up my semester with my students. So I teach middle school, and I actually teach 7th grade, which is the first year of middle school for my district. And we are finishing up our e-learning this week. Their last day of e-learning is tomorrow, so the 21st. And it has been an adventure. Our last day together in the classroom was March 16th, which was a Monday, and we basically found out just over that previous weekend that we were going to be out of school from March 17th through at least April 13th, which was the end of our spring break, with the goal of coming back after spring break. And so we spent, that last Monday, the 16th, going through e-learning protocol and everything that was going to be expected of the students. And it was a lot to fathom, even being away from school that long. As a teacher, there's just something so invigorating about being in the classroom with your students each day. You feel like you're making connections with them. You feel like you're really able to do learning activities that inspire them and meet their needs and just make learning super fun. And we had basically 2 days with our PLCs, our professional learning communities, to get together in between that Monday when we had our last student contact day and that Thursday when we started e-learning. And basically we had the 2 days, that Tuesday and Wednesday, to come into the building and work all day with our fellow teachers and get lessons ready to go for the next 2 weeks. And we did that. Thankfully, my PLC, we got ahead and had more lessons done than was anticipated, which meant that we were a little farther ahead when we were prepared. But I don't know. It's been hard for a lot of different reasons. First, it's just like anytime there's a big change, there's certainly a learning curve that you have to adjust to. And I feel pretty blessed that my school, every student has an iPad, every teacher has an iPad. So the transition to the e-learning itself was not necessarily the most difficult because we'd been using the technology for the entire school year up to that point. We just had been using it a little bit differently. But it's been hard to not be in class and to know that our kids are going through so much at home with their families, and we're not able to be there for them in person and be that smiling, happy face to tell them that it's going to be all right. That's genuinely been difficult. It's been difficult for the kids. It's difficult for the teachers. You don't realize, I think, as a teacher, how much you rely and feed off of the kids' positive energy until you don't have it with you every day. And so that's been really difficult. And what's also been really difficult is we have something called home base, which is kind of like homeroom, and it's a group of kids that you get at the beginning of the year and as 7th graders, and then you do a bunch of learning activities like team building, character building activities, as well as competing in games, like competitions with these kids, and you really get to know them, and you loop with them for 2 years. So you have them as 7th graders, and then you have them again as 8th graders. So I've had the same set of about 30 kids for 2 years now, and they're 8th graders, and they're getting ready to go off to high school. And it's been really hard to know that, like, I can't be there in person to be like, yes, go, like, you're gonna do this thing, you're gonna be so great in high school. So been trying to give them positive things like that through video and just checking in with them. But that's really hard to not be there to celebrate that milestone of being done with middle school and getting ready to go on to the next stage of things, and knowing that for a lot of these students, I won't see them again until they do senior walk at the end of their senior year of high school, and they come back and walk through the middle school. So that's been really hard. And it's hard not being around your 7th graders, like for me, because it's their first year of middle school, and they don't get to celebrate it the way that they should get to, and have the closure that they need and want, because we're not in the classroom to have that. So we've tried to make, different activities that we can do together online to get that same kind of closure, like a time capsule that we can open up for them at the end of their time in high school, as well as having them leave advice for next year's 7th graders. But I don't know. I love being a teacher, and I miss being a teacher in the classroom, and I'm thankful every day for the coworkers that I have, and the fact that we have had opportunities to work with technology beforehand, but it doesn't make being away from my students any easier, essentially. So I'm thankful for my students, and I'm thankful for the time that we did have in the classroom together this year. Yeah, so that's really all I have to say. I'm not going to say too much more. I get really emotional when I talk about it, so I've done pretty good. I haven't cried yet in this video talking about that, so I'm happy about that. I've been working a lot too. Like, don't let anybody tell you that working from home means that you're working less, because I honestly have been working as much, if not more, hours a week through this entire e-learning thing, because it's certainly, there's, like I said, there's a learning curve that we've had to overcome. All right, so like I said, we are finishing up. Tomorrow's the students' last day of e-learning, and then we're submitting grades next week. And teachers, we're lucky. We get to go back in the building for a few days, and we'll be cleaning out our classrooms for the summer, getting them summer ready, as well as working on stuff for next year. And also our students' parents are going to be able to come in and pick up the items that their students left in their lockers and in classrooms, because again, we all thought we were going to be back on April 13th. So even though we told kids to take things home, a lot of them left stuff. I know I probably would have if I was in middle school, thinking that we would be back before the end of the year. So that's kind of exciting. And so that's going to be, school year's going to go by so fast here for the last few days, because it's just going to be all sorts of crazy things, but good things. So last but not least, as I finish up getting ready here, what are some things that I want to do over the summer? I love summer, and there's a lot of things that I would normally be able to get to do, like going to summer theater with my family and going on vacation, but I'm not sure those kinds of things are going to happen this year. So some things that I would like to do that I will be able to do from home. I would really like to make a TBR cart. So I've seen a lot of people get a little metal book cart with 3 tiers, and they store their to be read books in there, and I'd love to do that so I can display more of my collection that I've read on my shelf that you normally see. But I don't want to just get one. I want to get one, and then I want to design, like, basically I want to make it my own. So I'm thinking about getting one and then painting it a teal that will match the walls in my room here, as well as the accent colors in my apartment, and then painting daisies on it and stuff like that. So that's exciting. I will show it to you guys if I end up getting to do that when it is all done. I'm really pumped about it. I think that might be the first thing I do when school is out. And then I also really want to make 2 photo albums, not scrapbooks, but actual just like photo albums. One I really want to make is for the trip to Europe that my family took last summer. So last summer, my cousin was playing with Old World Baseball in Europe, and we met up with him part of the way through his trip. He was playing in Germany, 2 different cities in Germany, Hamburg and Berlin. And so we met up with him in Hamburg, and then he joined us after he was done playing baseball in Berlin. So we went to Germany, and then we went to Paris, France, which was, I loved Germany, but I think Paris might have been one of my favorite places that we went. Getting to see the Louvre and just, I don't know, I had such a great time. And then we went to London, and then we went to Ireland, and I adored every place that we went. Ireland and Paris were probably 2 of my favorites, but I want to make a big scrapbook of all of the pictures that I took from that trip, as well as the pictures that my mom and dad took, because we took a lot of pictures. And then I also want to make a photo album for Macy May. Macy is my corgi. She is 4. And we have a lot of pictures of our previous dog, Doogie, and he was a Shetland sheepdog, and I got him when I was very young. And he lived all the way to basically my senior year of high school. We had to put him down, and I don't know, we have a lot of pictures of him, but we don't have them all in one place, and I wish that we did. And so while Macy is still pretty young, I'd like to get a photo album of her pictures going so that we can keep adding to it and have a real cohesive look at her life. She is just the most amazing dog. I love her so much, and I want to do that to have it as keepsake and memory of her. Alrighty, that is it, you guys. I am finally done getting ready. I will, like I said, try and make sure that all of the products that I used are either listed on the screen or in the description box, so that if you are interested in them, that you can find them better. But thank you guys for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.